Japanese homeland.
Captain, water in the conning tower.
Godzilla! Roaring defiance to the only enemy on Earth strong enough to challenge him. The unconquerable King Kong, giant gorilla god of this South Seas paradise, where sensuous maidens offer themselves in ritual sacrifice to his brute embrace.
Godzilla has a brain about this size. He is sheer brute force. While Kong is a thinking animal. His brain is considerably larger, about 10 times the size of this gorilla's skull. Being instinctive rivals, there is no doubt that they will attempt to destroy one another.
King Kong versus Godzilla, heading for their colossal collision, shattering every obstacle that stands between them in the most fantastic rampage of annihilation ever recorded on film. See King Kong stamp Tokyo into the ground, holding a beautiful girl in his grasp. See Godzilla destroy an entire army. See King Kong trapped by the blazing barrier of 1 billion volts. But nothing, nobody can stop the great showdown when King Kong and Godzilla meet to fight for survival of the fittest.
Hey everybody, welcome to 31 Days of Monsters. We are on day 28 and we're talking about King Kong versus Godzilla. And I got my pal Kevin Grievous here, a fellow monster kid. Good morning, Kevin, or good afternoon. Well, this is good morning for you.
Yeah, how you doing, Graham? How's everything going?
It's going great. It's going great.
Good.
We're having fun. We're in the Halloween season and we're talking about giant monsters kicking ass. So what's wrong with that?
Right. Oh, please. You know, that's what I was, that's what I lived for when I was a little kid. I mean, I grew up as a monster kid more than anything else. And, I guess my first exposures to getting into monsters was, were really dinosaurs. Because
Right.
what are dinosaurs but real monsters? You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
And so I just devoured that. And, it was a hop, skip, and a jump from that to the more fictional stuff,
Right.
Frankenstein, the Wolfman, Dracula, things like that. So, it all kind of came together for me.
When you were a kid, you were in the tri-state area, right?
When I was a kid, I'm originally from Minnesota. And, born in Chicago, my father's first job out of the service was in Minnesota. And so
Okay.
we were there for, man, I want to say 6-7 years,
Right.
until I was about 7. And so we lived there in the Midwest. And then we moved to Boston when I was 7 years old.
Okay.
And that's when I became familiar with this station called Channel 56, which was part of the old UHF network.
Okay.
There was network television, and then there were the off stations on UHF.
Right.
And that's when I discovered something called Creature Features, Channel 56.
Right.
And they played all the monster stuff, all the stuff that we really loved as kids,
Mm-hmm.
be it cartoons, the Lost in Spaces, blah, blah, blah. They played on that
Mm-hmm.
channel. So I was just glued there. And, on Saturday nights, they had Creature double features.
Right.
Which is where I saw all my favorites that I still love to this day.
Yeah. Well, this one was always one of those ones for Godzilla fans. I mean, for me, my favorite Godzilla movies when I was a kid was, of course, King of the Monsters.
Yes.
This one, King Kong vs. Godzilla, and then Destroy All Monsters. When those were on, man, I was like, okay, I got to set store by that, whatever time and day that was broadcast, I had to sit there and watch it. And this is my favorite Godzilla, the costume.
Yes.
Of all of them. I just love his face, and his hands are really big in this, and they have these giant claws. I think it's the best looking Godzilla of all of them.
Yeah, I would agree. Looking at the first Godzilla, it was, of course, great.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
there were some what looked like some feline features in the
Right.
design of the face, and then subsequent Godzilla costumes got better, as they went on,
His face got mushed as it got on. It got smaller and more cartoony looking too.
yes, 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 yes. I think that, they were trying to make it less scary,
Hmm.
and, uh, I've been reading a lot about it, when I was a kid, I would buy all the books, talking about King Kong, the different monsters, the various monsters. And from what I remember, they wanted to do a second Godzilla movie. Wasn't really sure where to go, but they also wanted to do King Kong too. And but they decided to make it less scary,
Hmm.
thinking they would get more mileage out of it. And so they weren't going to go as dark or what have you. And that's
Hmm.
where, partially, where the inspiration for the King Kong versus Godzilla movie came from, and then trying to make it for kids.
The
But it
irony is,
worked.
the irony is that it's the best looking Godzilla and the worst looking King Kong.
Oh yeah, but
Costume.
from what I
Oh.
know, but from what I hear, that RKO, who owned the rights to King Kong,
Hmm.
they had this caveat that okay, we're going to allow you to, do the movie because I think a guy named John Beck was the producer who was working with Willis O'Brien at the time, and they wanted to do a King Kong movie. They didn't have the rights, and once John Beck contacted them, he's like, okay, hey, look, we want to do this movie with you, but one of RKO's stipulations is that the King Kong creature could not look like the American version that we all know and love.
Hmm.
So instead of basing it on a gorilla, they based it on some Japanese monkey that was indigenous to the region.
Hmm.
And now I was thinking it was based on an orangutan, to be honest, until I read that, and I was like, well, that's interesting.
Well, that's funny you say that. Now that you say it, the face does look more like an orangutan face
Exactly,
than a gorilla.
exactly,
I
exactly.
never made that correlation. That's really interesting.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But the whole movie, had an interesting epidemiology, if I could say.
Hmm.
Um, Willis O'Brien, he wanted to do kind of like a King Kong versus Frankenstein.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what he originally wanted to do. And of course, it wasn't going to be the Bars Karloff one or whatever, but they were going to kind of Frankenstein a creature that was made from parts of elephants, rhinoceroses, blah, 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 and just scale it up. And I think one of the names they had was Prometheus.
Ah.
So, yeah, so Willis O'Brien contacted John Beck and said, hey, look, would you help me make this movie? And his thing was like, well, yeah, but he would do things behind Willis O'Brien's back.
Hmm.
And and he couldn't get financing for the movie um, with any American studio because Willis O'Brien, his pedigree was to do things in stop motion animation.
Hmm.
They thought it was going to be too big, too expensive. So behind his back, he went to the Japanese, and that's when they said, "Hey, look, you can do it over here. We've been wanting to do a King Kong movie anyway."
Hmm.
But for good or for ill, it wound up being shunted into the fact that they wanted to do King Kong. So they eschewed the Prometheus, putting King Kong instead. And what's interesting about it is that the last vestiges of their former direction was the fact that King Kong had electric powers or lightning powers, you know.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, okay, I would never have made that correlation because ultimately,
Yeah.
the Japanese did do, I know this is a segue to another movie, did
Yeah.
do Frankenstein Conquers the
Conquers the
World.
world.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
And then its sequel, which is actually one of the greatest kaiju movies made, which was War of the Gargantuas.
exactly. And I'm
Yeah.
still waiting for them to do that, with Legendary now. I have an
Yeah.
idea. They'll never listen to me. But yeah, man, I loved all that stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. That's interesting. And it's funny that it went through the script process and the filming process, the whole aspect of the electricity. And yet there's never any mention of it in the story itself up until the point where he has to use it. And it cracks me up that it's like, oh, there's an electrical storm coming. This will be good for Kong because electricity makes him stronger. It's like, where the fuck did that come from? What gorilla gets stronger from electricity? You know?
I know. But as a kid, I was like, man, this is cool. You know what I'm saying? I mean,
Yeah.
we didn't really worry about the logistics of it, and how it worked.
Yeah.
Man. And it's funny talking to you about this because I remember, I think it was our first Saturday in Boston, and we were at kind of like the breakfast table. It was kind of a late breakfast, but man, one of these, Japanese monster movies came on, and I'm like, and I felt this exhilaration. I'm like, what is this? And it turned out to be Ultraman.
Oh.
Yeah, and I was hooked. So, that was my first introduction to this whole Japanese monster thing. And
how old were you when you first saw your first Japanese monster movie?
7.
7. Okay.
7, yeah. 7.
Yeah.
7.
It's so funny because, it's very generational. When we grew up, we're, those things were on TV and we took them with a grain of salt. We adopted them and loved them and all that kind of stuff.
Yes.
But previous generations, they look at it like shit, like the funny story I like to tell is we had to go to my grandparents' house one time, and WPIX was showing a double feature of Godzilla movies. It was Godzilla's Revenge and it might have been Godzilla itself. And my brother and I wanted to watch it, but we had to go to my grandparents' house, and so my mom says, well, just ask Nana and Pop-Ups. I'm sure they'll let you watch it, because there's only one TV back then.
Yeah, exactly.
So we go over there. Now, my grandfather was a World War I combat vet and a New York cop, right? So he is a very, very grounded individual, but he loved his grandchildren. So, we said, Pop-Ups, can we watch these movies? He goes, oh, yeah, sure. So he's sitting in his throne in front of the TV. My brother and I are sitting around on the carpet watching these Godzilla movies. And my grandfather didn't shut up. He was constantly talking during the movie about how bad it was. It's like, oh my God, that's a guy in a costume. This looks terrible. My brother and I are like, Pop-Ups, we're trying to watch the movie.
But I guess they just don't understand, what they do to a young mind, especially a burgeoning creative one.
Sure.
Like I remember, and I'm trying to remember or think why my mother would not let me watch King Kong, and something always came up. And the first time maybe I can see because she was a stickler. I mean, at the time she had 3 rambunctious boys, and
God bless her.
yeah, and I think King Kong came on at 9:00, and her thing was we had a hard out at 8 p.m. Good time to go to bed.
Oh,
and so it took me. I had to have my father tell us about King Kong when he was a kid, just so I could get it in my head. And then finally, I was able to see it when I was 10 years old. And what was bothering me is that I would see all the cool posters. They would have these contests to see, if you could win a King Kong poster. I would see the trailers to the movies on the commercials, and I'm like, man. And then the most angry I got at my mother, we moved to New Jersey. And remember the 4:30 movie?
Yes, it was Thriller Theater. It was called.
It was a 4:30 movie. There was a guy on an old-fashioned platform with the camera cranking it, and King Kong would come on during the Thanksgiving break. And there was no excuse. It's 4:30. I can finally see it. And back then we saw it on the TV guide.
Right.
So I was like, great.
And you circle
yeah, exactly. Do you know my mother would not let me see it because she was going Thanksgiving shopping, and she would not let me stay at home by myself. So I'm like, I don't believe this. I'm
really
10 years old. I can stay. I'm not going anywhere. I'm right here. And she's like, nope, you're coming with me. And I'm like, oh my goodness, I got the King Kong model before I saw the movie. But finally I saw it, and man, it did not disappoint. It really did not disappoint, man. But I saw King Kong versus Godzilla before I saw the actual King Kong movie. But because of King Kong's lore
Yeah,
and
sure.
all the, magazines and whatnot, hey, I was firmly steeped in, I kind of knew what to expect. So
Did you have well, when you were in New Jersey, you probably saw the Monster Times. Do you remember the Monster
I
Times?
remember the Monster Times only because a buddy of mine, he was into that stuff, and he got me into comic books eventually anyway.
Right.
But he had like a subscription to Monster Times, and also you remember the comic book buyer's guide.
Sure.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And so I would read his,
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Monster Times was the monster magazine for me. I never really came across Famous Monsters of Filmland when I was a kid, but I was on Long Island and they published not that far. I think they were in Brooklyn. Um, and so we would, the candy shops and stuff would get the Monster Times like every other week. It was a
Yeah, yeah,
newspaper. And that's where I first fell in love with the monsters, and then through that is how I discovered comics.
Okay.
Through the month,
Yes.
because they would have articles about comics of the day and what was happening and all that stuff. And that was
Yeah.
early 1970s,
Yeah.
and it was just a great time. We were building the Aurora models where we've got our monster magazines. We had a
Yep.
bunch of different shows. WPIX had their creature features. WOR had Chiller Theater, I think, or maybe
Yeah,
it was
yeah.
the other
I
one.
think channel. Yeah, I think it was channel. I think it was WPIX that had Children Theater with the
Okay,
hand.
with the
Yeah,
yeah. The
yeah. So I
seven-fingered
remember all
hand or
that.
six-fingered hand.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I love
That
that.
stuff
I
was great.
love
Yeah, that
that.
stuff was great.
Yeah.
And
Then there was one year, I think it was 1972 to 73. It
mhm.
must have been WOR, Channel
Okay,
9, had the Thriller Theater, which was like at 4 o'clock. So we'd come home from school, rush through our homework so that we
right.
could watch that. And it only lasted a year. But I
Okay.
remember that one vividly, because it was right after
Wow.
school. So cool.
Yeah, yeah. Those were good times, and my kids didn't understand that. And a lot of young kids don't understand that back then. You knew it was coming on solely because of the TV guide. And the thing is, and the reason I was so upset with my mother, if you didn't see it, it might not come on again for 2 years
Right.
or 3 years. There was none of this going to the video store or ordering the DVD on Amazon.
Nope.
No, you had to wait and
Mhm.
comb, the TV guide and the channels to hope something came on. So these kids don't know how good they have it.
Yeah,
They
I
really
almost feel sorry for him because in some ways it's so much more exciting when it pops up and you don't have control. You know,
Yes,
uh,
yes,
it's like when Charlie Brown, the Great Pumpkin Charlie Brown was on. It was on CBS. And Dolly Madison was the sponsor, and it was on at 8 o'clock on. And that was
yep,
it. If you
exactly,
didn't catch it, it was next year.
exactly,
You know,
exactly. Yeah, and we were always glued to that television.
yeah,
So and making a quick segue, that's one of the things I think that, for good or for ill, is missing from the comic book industry. Um, they tell you what's coming out with the previews and everything. And there was something to be said about just going to the comic shop or the newsstand and something just being there. You know what I'm
hmm
saying? And
right,
you didn't know what the cover was going to look like. You didn't know who the villain was. It was just there. And it's like, oh man. And that enhanced, the experience,
yeah,
and but different times,
yeah.
different business model, so I get it.
I have a very distinct memory of my brother and I loved the Amazing Spider-Man. In issue 135, that's when it was
uh,
revealed that Harry Osborn was the new Green Goblin and stuff. And
yeah,
so he had found Peter's mask or something like that. So we couldn't wait for this next issue, number 136. And
right,
we didn't know what it was going to be. We just knew that it was going to be this big reveal. And we saw the newspaper delivery truck in front of this luncheonette where we used to buy our comics. Now it was after hours, but they were
Yeah.
in there stocking all the newspaper or the magazines and the comic books.
Right.
And there it was sitting in front of us. My brother and I are looking through the window. There's Spider-Man 136 with that amazing John Romita cover
Oh
of
yeah.
Spidey and the Goblin in this German expressionist image, and then down below Peter and Harry going at it as well.
Right.
Holy shit. We were looking at that. We're like, oh my God, let me in.
Yep. Oh man, those were the days.
Yeah, and it did not disappoint.
Yeah, exactly. And the thing about it that a lot of these, younger, fans don't understand is that that feeling does not have to go away just because you're older. A lot of people like to say that, well, you don't feel the same way about comics because you're older now. You're not 12 years old. I'm like, no, that's not really it. The excitement and the creativity just isn't there. I find that in the independent comics, like you do, in the corporate comics, you don't see that.
Yeah. Yeah.
You really
The
don't see
passion
that.
isn't there the way it was back then. The publisher's job was to sell comics, and they would try anything interesting or do whatever was popular. They would do comics about that. When westerns were popular, sci-fi was popular, it didn't matter. They'd churn them out and see what stuck. And you got some really creative and interesting things. When the horror boom, when the Comics Code Authority started lifting their rules and regulations in the early 1970s, all of a sudden Marvel, because we were at the tail end of the whole Monster Kids thing that started in 1958. So by the 1970s, they were chugging along, and now they could do stories about the undead and monsters and show some blood and all that kind of stuff. And so, man, all those great horror comics came out. They don't do that anymore. They're just like, oh, we'll put out another Batman comic because Batman sells, or we'll put another X-Men comic out, and then they shit on the continuity and the history and all that other stuff, and it just makes it.
Yeah, exactly. And it just makes you say, well, if you don't care, neither do I.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So, but as you said, the love of the art form is still there by many people, many creators.
Oh yeah.
It's just the corporates don't share that. So, everybody in the chat knows this too, because they followed the independents, so, they know the deal. So
Exactly.
Do you have anything that you're currently funding right now? Because I know you do some independent stuff. Is there anything you want to talk about?
I'm not crowdfunding right now, but I'm coming up with, like, I just released an early release of my book, The Addams Family. And then I have a book called The Vindicators, one called Valkyries, and another called The Toy Box. And I'm putting them in a compilation, issue. And, I should be going to the printer with that soon, another early release before I actually, decide what I want to crowdfund next. And so, it's kind of hard deciding, what to do. This Vindicators book, this, I call it Astounding Comics, like this compilation, is kind of like an all ages thing, because when I go to the conventions, a lot of parents bring their kids, and there's really nothing for them to really get, because they don't know what the content is. You know what I'm saying? They don't know whether it's safe or not.
Right.
So this is something that kind of harkens back to the kind of comics we grew up with. Like, when all things weren't, they weren't labeled all ages, but you knew instinctively that they were going to be safe for your kids. We're talking early 70s, through the mid 80s, they were relatively safe. So your kid got a comic book, there wasn't going to be anything objectionable in there.
Sure. Certainly, superhero comics, they followed certain patterns, up until the 90s, when they started to get a little bit more violent and sexualized.
Yeah, exactly. And the thing is that a lot of people don't understand. It's like, it's not that they were violent or whatnot. They were just kids' action adventure. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Like Saturday matinees.
Right.
And that's what you expected. That's what comic books were. Saturday matinees where you had, I think I remember Denny O'Neil saying something akin to the fact that every comic book should have 2 fights. And if you can fit it in, make it 3. You know what I'm saying? And so that really kept the action moving and everything else, man. And I love that, you know. Now
Yeah.
you don't get that. But,
Yeah.
you know, back
Yeah.
then, hey, you know, man, it was something to be saying,
Yeah.
you know.
Well, it's like
That's what I
Alex Kurth used to say there's a difference between action and violence.
Yes.
And I completely agree with that, you know, because like Saturday matinees had plenty of action, fist fights and gunshots and all that stuff. But you know, they were romanticized so that they weren't violent. You know, you didn't see guys' teeth flying out of their mouth
Exactly.
or
Exactly.
blood spattering or, you know, squib shots and you know, all that kind of stuff, you know. It was
Exactly.
very different, and I think that's very true. I try to do stuff like that, except when I'm doing my horror stuff. Then,
Yeah. Like for instance, you know, I still like the old Black Blood that Marvel and DC used to do. You know what I'm
mm,
saying? I
you're
mean,
right.
all that was cool, you
Yeah,
know. And I remember how creative it was when Frank Miller came along in the early '80s and had Elektra stabbing people, but the manifestation was just that the clothes were, you know, had the point on them.
oh yeah.
Yeah. And I'm like, see, now that is creative. And we didn't even think anything of it. We like, of course, they're not going to show someone getting actually impaled. But
Right,
that was just a smart way to do it. And I love stuff like that. Leave something to the imagination. You know what I'm
right,
saying?
right,
You know, that's
right.
what I like. That's what I really like.
You know, it's like Hitchcock. You know, you never see the knife penetrating her in Psycho,
Yeah.
but everybody swore they saw it.
Yeah, man, that's so true. That's so true. That's so true.
Yeah.
So
So,
true.
let's say hi to the chat here, guys. Let's see who's here. We got JP Roca asking what's good. Past Master Dan reminds everybody to sign up for Shanu 77, which is coming soon. A little update on that, guys. I'll be sending out an email today, right after the show. I've moved the date to Halloween, and this is the last time I'm moving this date, by the way. The reason is because Malin is closing out, and he can't change his date, and I don't want to step on anybody's toes. So we're going to do a soft launch at 1 p.m. Right after we do our finale for 31 days. So you guys will be right here. You can stay here, and it'll go live, and then we'll do a launch party at 9 o'clock, either on my channel or Ethan's channel later on there. We're still working that out, but so the real launch date now is Halloween, and how apropos is that for the Shanu? So I just wanted to let you guys know that. Past Master Dan is here. Dr. Mask. JP Roca, I said. Past Master says he was enjoyable movie. I had to watch an older version on Internet Archive, but I do want to see the 4K version. Have you ever seen the Japanese version, Kevin?
I think I did the one where Godzilla is the one who survives, and he's the one who swims off into the distance. You know,
Okay.
I think I might have on a DVD. I just can't remember
Okay.
all of the specifics. Yeah, because I know the American version they had King Kong win, and the
Yeah.
Japanese version, you know, Godzilla won.
Now, Joe Jusko tells me that the Kong wins in both versions, but I haven't seen it, so I don't know.
Oh, really? Okay, yeah. I
Yeah.
thought I remember seeing it, but you
Yeah.
know, if he said it with conviction, I'm more inclined to lean towards what he said. But I do know I read
Yeah.
that you know the Japanese version had Godzilla winning.
The Japanese version is on YouTube. It's not.
Okay.
There's no dubbing or anything, so it's completely in Japanese. So
Oh, okay.
I think I'm going to forward fast through the end and see who wins. I think it's a 4K version too.
Right. Yeah, you
So
know, man. You know, one of the things about those movies, you know, that I really wish as a nod or an homage to, you know, that time period, it was the music, you
mm,
know, and just that fight music, you know, like in War of the Gargantua was like
Oh, oh
Oh
yeah.
man, it's like, you know what? This is what I'm talking about. This is a monster movie. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And man, that just brings back. I'm getting chills just thinking about it. I wish they would bring it back for these modern ones.
In
At least a version of it.
this American version, they were using the Creature from the Black Lagoon soundtrack. Did you notice that?
You know what? I think I did recognize
Yeah.
that.
Dun,
I
dun,
can't remember what
dun, dun, dun,
exactly.
dun. I was like, holy shit, the creature's gonna fight in this one too.
Oh, I know, man. I know. And the thing is, I saw that movie again the other day, and I'm telling you, these things still hold up. And I don't think it's just because I'm a monster fan. I
Mhm.
think that everyone played everything straight. It was just cool. I mean, I still think that Creature from the Black Lagoon costume was the best,
Mm.
makeup job for that time period. I
It
really
really
do.
holds up still.
Yeah, man. I mean, just looking at it, you know.
Yeah. When
But
Ben
hey,
Chapman comes up on the boat, he was the land creature, and Rico Browning was the swimming creature.
yeah.
When Chapman would come up on the boat, and his gills would be like,
I know. And he would just breathe like you just see it, and I'm like, and then his hands would come up. I'm like, you know what?
yeah,
This
that's
is the
so cool.
stuff of monster movie. And in fact, that was the first monster model I bought, you know. And back then I got involved in the monster models
Hmm.
when Aurora had the glow in the dark
Yeah,
iteration.
me too. Yep.
Yeah. And so I would use a lot of the glow in the dark, pieces. Like for the creature, I think I had the hands and the feet glowing.
Right.
For the mummy, I just had the hand and the snake, you know. But it was funny, I remember I would scare myself, when they were on my shelf, and I would put a blanket over them. Sometimes I'm like, man, but it was,
The Godzilla one was really cool because the spines were the glow in the dark stuff.
yeah. You could also do the head, the hands, and the
Yeah,
feet, and I did I did the head too.
yeah,
But
yeah.
man,
And you
but
turn the
yeah,
lights off, and it
yeah,
looked
that
like
was
he's ready
fun.
to shoot his flame. It was so neat.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That was fun.
Let's see. Rob Fellow says, "I love the tiny tanks rushing out to do battle, then scurrying back to hide when they've been whooped."
Oh. Yeah, all that stuff was fun. The special effects they used, all the lightning weapons. I'm like, man, I wonder if they actually have those. That's what I was saying back then.
Yeah, like in War of the Gargantuous, they got those
Yes,
those discs that shoot the electricity out. Like
exactly,
lasers. I
exactly,
thought that was really cool.
exactly. Yeah, and like I said, man, what was really cool about them is that they were miniatures. And they used them effectively. And I was always hoping they would come out with some of those as models. Never saw them, but that did get me into purchasing tanks, World War II tanks,
Oh yeah,
and building those along with some of the ships too, like the Missouri, the Bismarck,
sure.
things like that, you know. Yeah, that was fun.
Stat Zero says, "Ha, weird timing. I was just watching Underworld the other night."
Well, I hope you liked it.
I'm sure he did.
Yeah.
Let's see what else we got here. Oh, somebody giving you a shout out, brother. Raise.
Hey, how you doing?
Oh, we got a super chat from 200 Watt Studio for $5. Thank you, 200 Watt Studio. Cheers, guys. Kevin, please show your Famous Monsters t-shirt I wrote for them years ago. Oh,
Yeah, this was one of my, other favorite monsters. I have like three. I have my favorite giant monster, which was King Kong. My
okay.
favorite monster movie of all time has got to be The Thing from Another World.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah,
You and
yeah,
me.
it's got to be The Thing from Another World. I mean, it's funny, that movie, up until I was like 16, that part where, they're going towards the greenhouse and they open the door and the thing is right there and swings at him. I still jumped. I was like,
Yeah.
oh man,
Yeah.
But that was a great movie. And
I like when he says, you got in the way of my picture. He goes, you want me to open the door? No!
I know you want me to open it again. Man, you know what? See, now, getting a little serious here, the dialogue in that movie was fantastic.
Oh, amazing.
Man, I mean, the opening salvo when they're playing cards, just that.
Yeah.
And when, as a director now, you see the timing that has to go into all that and how dialed in all the actors have to be.
Mm-hmm.
Just brilliant, And, it makes me kind of sad now. I was coming out of this restaurant here in LA called Jerry's. And who walks out of the door with his family but Ken Toby?
No way.
Yeah, and I'm like, man, I hope I want to say something, but when a man's with his family, man, he's an older dude now, and I'm like, nah, I don't want to scare him, because he'd probably be surprised that anyone even remembers him because, I mean, he was in The Thing from Another World. It Came from Beneath the Sea.
Right.
The Beast from 20,000 Fathoms.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's like, for this big guy to come out of nowhere and just, falling all over, he was like, okay, it's like, when he got the kick out of it, I don't know. But yeah,
I would have loved to have. I would have loved to have met him and talked to him because. That movie, it's so
but
great.
The other thing I was going to say about my favorite monsters, my favorite Universal monster, was actually the look of the Mummy. And I remember when I was a kid, I was really disappointed because in the original Mummy movie, you saw Boris Karloff in the sarcophagus, but then you only saw his hand, on the desk, but then you never saw the mummy again.
Yeah, I know.
And I'm like, well, wait a minute now. So what happened to the mummy? Because I know I've seen pictures of it before. And then you find out that, okay, there's the mummy's cursed, the hand of the mummy, things like that.
Yeah.
And it's like, those were different actors, but
a different mummy.
Yeah, and a different mummy too.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then, of course, the Hammer films, they had a good mummy thing. And, yeah, man, but, the mummy was the favorite of the Universal monster just because of, the story, the wrappings, the fact that it looked monstrous, and all that. That's what I'm talking about. Yeah.
My favorite mummy movie is The Mummy's Hand. It was the first one they did after the Karloff one.
Yes.
And it's got Tom Tyler playing the mummy, and it's basically pre-Indiana Jones because you got this two-fisted archaeologist, fighting his way, and he's got a little sidekick and stuff like that. That juxtaposition of comedy and horror together and action adventure. I just love that movie.
Yeah. That's the comedy part was the only part I did not like because I kind of took my monsters seriously. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, you were that guy.
Yeah. Exactly. I mean, you know what, man? So I was watching, what movie was it? I think it was the Beast from 20,000 Fathoms. And, they tried to force in this little romance. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, man, as a kid, I was saying, now what do we need that for?
Right.
Forget that girl. Now, it's like, and I know my father was like, well, wait till you get older. You'll understand. But, man, it was still kind of funny how they just try to shoehorn it in there. Even in The Thing, the creature, they always try to get in that little love interest or whatever. So,
but in The Thing, it works really well because they're referencing an event that happened before everything that we're seeing now.
True.
And I love that, that he got drunk, he was feeling her up and everything, and this is why he's got to tie her up, or he's got to tie him up.
Oh my goodness! And then she plants one on him while he has his hand behind his back. I'm like, look at this.
Yeah. And he lets her, and he wasn't even tied up. He just like this, he lights a cigarette, and she's like, "Hey, great." Hey, 200 Watt. Thanks for that other $5 super chat. Totally recommend the Japanese version of King Kong vs. Godzilla. It is actually a satire on sensationalistic journalism, much better than the U.S. edit. Oh, that's cool. I definitely got to
Yeah,
catch that somewhere. You know,
yeah,
did
definitely,
you?
definitely.
Are you a fan of Curse of the Demon?
Oh my goodness, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
But you know what though? I'll be honest with you. I did not see that until probably the late '80s. I had
Okay.
always seen that, the visage of the demon, because it was part of, it was a cover on Famous Monsters of Filmland magazine, but I never saw it until then. Then I saw it, and I'm like, man, this is a good movie.
Right.
You only see the creature twice, but man, it worked completely. Spooky, the acting wise, the skepticism of the scientists, and then coming over and saying, wow, there may be something to this. But yeah, I liked it. In fact, I think in London it was called Night of the Demon, wasn't it?
That's the original English version. Is Night
Okay,
of the Demon,
okay,
and
Night of the
I
Demon.
just bought the uncut. It was an English Blu-ray that
Yes.
has all versions on it. It's got the U.S. version, the English version. It's got the or the movie, the theatrical version, and then you have the uncut version.
Okay.
And the uncut English version, Night of the Demon, is so cool because there's like 14 minutes of stuff that got cut out, and it's all character stuff. Uh,
Really.
yeah, it makes motivations clearer.
Right.
It makes relationships clearer, and it's a much better movie. Even
Okay.
Curse of the Demon is great, but Night of the Demon is uncut is amazing.
Okay. Yeah. I'll have to check that out then. I'll have to check that out then.
I'll send you a link to where you can get it on Amazon.
Okay. Good. 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 Please. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
I was talking about it with Jusco in this group that we're in, and he said, "Yeah, send me that link." So I sent it to him. So he wants to get it too.
Yeah, man. That yeah, those movies were something else, man. I mean, just to go through them and, look at them again, man, really brings back a lot of
Yeah.
memories of, simpler times,
Mhm.
how much care they took to make these things. You know what
Mhm.
I'm saying?
Under the
Um,
restrictions of their, limitations too.
oh yeah, man. But it worked.
Yeah. Yeah.
It worked,
It worked because we're talking about it 60, 70, 80 years after they came out,
Exactly.
you know?
Exactly. And I don't know why there isn't a monster channel, you know, something akin to that,
Mhm.
because I don't know, man. I mean, I remember when we lived in DC, this was probably 87, 88. I would make regular trips down to the National Cable Association because at that time I was thinking about if I wanted to create a science fiction channel, because of this burgeoning thing called cable, how would I go about doing it? And there was never anything there until the latter part, I mean, the early part of the 90s. And that's when someone finally got the idea to do a sci fi channel.
Mm.
But, a monster channel would be amazing if you have the right people to do it. You know what I'm
Mhm.
saying?
Yeah.
And really, don't bring in gore. I don't like gore,
Mhm.
gory stuff. I
Yeah.
like monster movies and I like horror monster movies much better. But bring back those creatures, bring back the practical effects,
Mhm.
creativity, that's really about the monster, make them metaphorical if you want to, but bring them back,
Let me
um,
ask you this. Are you as excited as I am about Del Toro's Frankenstein?
Man, I want to see it. I'll tell you that. Of the images I saw of the creature, I did not like the creature the way it
Okay.
looked.
Okay.
My thing is that I don't like a handsome creature. The only time I might have accepted it was when they did Frankenstein: The True Story,
Oh
that
yeah.
TV
Yeah.
that TV miniseries,
Love that
and
movie.
the way they said the process is reversing itself. Then he
Right.
started to become more monstrous. I said, okay, I can buy that.
Yeah.
I can buy that. But there's still there are aspects of it just because it's Frankenstein. I got to go see it,
Yeah.
and, just to see how they did. I mean, of course, I did a movie called I, Frankenstein,
Hmm.
and they jacked that bad boy up, and so, I'm interested in the character and how they go about doing it. So I'm
Yeah.
definitely going to see it. I did like the clothing
Yeah.
that they gave him, so
I
hopefully,
like the colors. Yeah, I like the fact that he's not just putting a blue filter over everything.
oh yes,
Like modern horror films, you see everything is blue, you can't see shit. This he's
yeah,
painting with a palette. You see,
yes,
there's bold colors all over the place, and I love I mean, all I've seen of the actor playing the monster is basically his eyes and nose. Everything else
yeah,
is covered. I haven't seen a full body shot of him or anything like that, so I'm
yeah,
reserving judgment. But I did see where they were shooting at him, and he the bullets are just passing through him like this, and then he goes
yeah.
and he like actually rocks the ship. Moves the ship.
Oh wow, wow, yeah.
Did you
See,
see that? Did you see
no,
that one?
I didn't see that part. I have not seen. I haven't really seen a trailer. I saw a partial clip because Guillermo del Toro was being interviewed by someone,
Okay.
and so I saw a partial clip, and then they interviewed the actor, and I'm like, okay, um, I like I said, I just did not like the face of the creature design. I thought it should look more monstrous. Like I like the Kenneth Branagh version of Frankenstein, but I did not like Robert De Niro as
Right.
Frankenstein. Though I'm like, nah, see, it looks too much like him. You know what I'm saying? And I'm like, nah, I know you probably can't use the universal um, monster design, but there is something you could have done to make it look more monstrous. That's my thing at least.
Right. Here, let's while we're talking about it, let's watch the uh the trailer.
Okay.
Let's see. There we go. It is super cool. And then we can see what you think about it. There we
Well,
go.
already I love the castle design.
Yeah, right? Okay, here we go.
My maker told his tale. And I will tell you mine. I remember pieces. Memories of different men. And I saw it. Your name. Victor Frankenstein. My creator. I demand a single grace from you. If you are not to award me love, then I will indulge in rage. Now, run.
Yeah, now that looks good. That looks good. Yeah, that looks good.
Yeah.
That looks
Yeah.
good. Yeah, yeah. So I
Did
guess
you
I know
notice
what
the
the wife and I
color?
will be watching. Oh
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, I know what the wife and I will be watching in November now. So,
Yeah.
yeah, man, That's cool. I like that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm
you see,
super excited.
yeah. You know what fascinates me about Frankenstein too is the fact that I love looking at the old style laboratories. I got my degree in microbiology and I studied genetic engineering in grad school. So I'm familiar with the laboratory. I'm working at NIH. You kind of see the juxtaposition of how labs are built or whatever. And it's always interesting to see experimentation or whatever, man. It's, science still fascinates me, in that sense. I haven't given that up, which is really the impetus to my getting into science fiction,
That's really cool. That's a neat
Yeah,
transition.
yeah. I mean, when I was working at NIH, what I wanted to work on was age retardation, and I actually ran into a scientist who was working on that very thing. Um, and all that is fascinating. So when you have the story of Frankenstein, bringing, not creating life as he was saying it, but resuscitating it, immortality, things like that from a human perspective. I think that's still fascinating,
Yeah,
it really is.
right. Yeah, yeah. Why do we have an expiration date? You know, uh,
Yeah, well,
from the physical
sin entered the
standpoint.
world, and the wages of sin are death.
That's
So,
true.
yeah, but yeah, man, that's just fascinating.
Uh, 200 Watt Studios, another $5 super chat says, I'm from Detroit area and grew up with Creature Features, Sir Graves Ghastly on Saturday mornings and The Ghoul on Channel 20 Fridays. So saw so many great films. Yeah, the various cities used to have their own horror hosts, and that was really cool.
Yeah, man, you know what? We didn't have one. And, but I tell you what I did see. There was an episode of The Munsters where they had Zombo. And I remember
Oh, I
thinking
remember that.
how, yeah, and I remember thinking how cool that was. Like, man, why can't we have something like that? You
Yeah.
know? And yeah, but that was great, man, But I never got to experience any monster host of anything. It's just that, you had the opening crawl for the show,
Mm-hmm.
and that was it.
When I lived in Florida, over in Tampa, there was a horror host, Doctor Dr. Paul Bearer, like a Paul Bearer.
Yes.
Yeah, he was
Yes.
great. He was an old radio guy. He had like this walleye, thing going off on the side, and he had this voice like
Yes.
this, like he had smoked
Oh yeah,
cigarettes all
yeah,
day. He was great. I used to love that guy. Funny little quips and stuff. But
yeah.
yeah, so
Yeah, man. Those were the days, man. I'm telling you.
good
Oh
stuff.
man.
Good stuff, guys.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Tomorrow we are still in Kaiju land because we're going to be talking about 1956's Rodan. And then we're heading into the Giant Claw, and of course we end with 1931's Frankenstein. So I want to thank Kevin for coming in and spending some time with fellow monster kids like us and
Oh
talking
man.
cool shit.
Thanks for having me. Thanks for having
Oh,
me.
it was a pleasure. It was a great conversation.
Most
I feel like
definitely.
I want to go look at my Monster Times now.
Yeah, man. I was able to get a whole bunch of digital versions of famous monsters of filmland, and it's
Nice.
interesting going back and looking at them. Like I remember the first one I saw was the 1965 annual.
Oh, yeah.
And yeah, and they had this feature where they had this kid dressing up as a monster, and one of the guys helping him make his do his own makeup. And I remember how frightened I was of that, and I had my babysitter read it to me. He's like, and now I'm a terrible monster. And I'm like, oh my goodness. And then you read it now and it's like, man, this is what I was afraid of.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I
Oh
I hope
man.
you told your mother when you finally got to see King Kong. Ha! I saw it.
Oh yeah, man. She's like, Kevin, I don't remember that. I'm like, I know you don't. I do.
Oh, that's hysterical.
Oh man, but I see some of that attitude in my own kids when they like, Daddy, I'm 10 years old. And I'm like, yeah, I remember saying that, but you come with me.
Which
Oh
Very different when you're the parent, isn't it?
Exactly.
All right, brother. Thanks so much.
Hey,
Thanks
man, thanks for
everybody
having
in the chat, and we will see you next time.
Okay, man, you take care.
Bye bye now, everybody.
They're coming to get you, Barbara.